What is one moment when you realized you just fucked up? It's been almost 30 years since this happened, and I still have nightmares. Freshman year of college. My first set of college finals. I was totally prepared and ready to take them all. Had almost straight as going into finals. I go to my last one, which was a way 3 CRS of Introduction to Sociology. I sit down ready to ace it and look up at the board to see Biology 103. Huh, that's weird. I pull out my calendar. The sociology final was yesterday. And that nightmare will still recur after 40 years. I had almost the same experience. I reported for my calculus final exam and found the door locked. I had written down the wrong location. I tried every location I could think of for a half hour. I gave up and went for pizza and beer. The class was a breeze when I repeated it. Even if you don't make the mistake, you finding yourself waking up in the middle of the night like $, and I missed my final. Over a decade after you graduated. While I was doing my human bio test, I realized after handing the paper in that I needed to do 2 essays instead of 1. Quickest 5 stages of grief I went through. I know them feels. I once forgot to look at the back page of an exam booklet and missed 2 long answer questions. Yeah, learned from that mistake, and now I just check the back page just solely of the fact that I might get 20 marks off. I was doing my SATs and realized I had forgotten to do 2 pages of questions when we moved on from that area. Still, that was my second time through, and I got a higher score than the first time, so I see that as an absolute win. One of my friends wrote an entire essay on Martin Luther King instead of Martin Luther on the final of a European history exam. Needless to say, she failed it. Was talking about a huge project for a CS class that was due in a few days with some friends. When I mentioned how much work I had left, one of them looked at me and said, "How are you going to finish it by tonight?" I found out the project was actually due that day. I needed that project to pass. It was at that moment I knew I wasn't going to graduate with a CS degree. My major had an important milestone type class. Rather than sign up electronically as you do for every other class, you had to fill out a form, have it signed by your advisor, and turn it into the registrar's office so they could manually add you to the class. As I listened to my classmates talk about it after class one day, I realized I had never turned in the form and the deadline had been a week earlier. That was when I realized I wouldn't be graduating on time. I got called into a meeting with my line manager, out of nowhere. He slid a piece of paper across the desk and said, "Do you know what Reddit is? And are these comments from your account?" Took me a moment to figure out the answers to those questions, and soon enough realized, oh boy, am I going to have a story for Tifu when this is over. Sadly, thanks to an NDA, I'm not allowed to tell any more of the story. How did they find your Reddit, and why? Geez, how did they find your Reddit account? I'm guessing he was on Reddit while at work, and it found out. I once saw a Tifu post where someone posted something offensive in a thread and another user took the time to comb through their comments and glean enough personal information to track them down, then send a copy of the comments to their boss. Not that exciting, but it was my first day at my new pizza job, and 20 minutes after I cashed out a pickup order I froze and realized I never sliced that pizza. This one made me lol. Imagine getting that pizza. I might be tempted to fold it up and try to take a bite, haha. First day at my new pizza job, my brain automatically switched to pirate voice and now I can't read this any other way. Welcome to our pizza, pirate matey. I worked at Little Caesars in high school and forgot to cut pizzas for like 20 minutes. A bunch of customers got uncut pizzas and a family even came back so we could cut the pizza. I felt like such an idiot. And then it got thrown onto Walter White's roof. This morning when I got a call from school wondering why I wasn't at my exam. During college we had a time change for a final exam, and I forgot to update it in my calendar. I'd just taken a nap and woke up to an instant message from a classmate saying, "Where are you? You're missing the exam." It was seriously in all caps. In that moment my stomach just about dropped through the floor. It was a class I had to pass to advance in my major and the exam was a big part of the final grade. Thankfully the professor was pretty understanding and let me take it during her office hours the next day. I accidentally missed my statistics test, so I got to retake it this summer. Feels terrible, but at least this grade replaces the previous one. When realizing that you put the wrong test version down on the Scantron for your final exam. My calc prof thought I did this once, or had an off by one issue, based on my grade. She and I spent about 2 hours trying to figure out what happened. Turns out I just knew about 15% of the material, so I got about 15% on the test. As a grader, where the exams are Scantron based, I get scared that I've mixed up the exam versions when I start seeing low grades early on. I was a tart during grad school. I have to admit, it was freaking satisfying grading exams using them. I don't know what it was about them, that I just loved doing it lol. At one point a few years ago, my girlfriend at the time texts me and says, I guess surprise pregnancies are a thing. Then she stopped responding for about half an hour, and I 19 meters proceeded to have a heart attack. Turns out her sister got knocked up, but that was the absolute worst 30 minutes of my life. 10,000 upvotes and no gold? Unbelievable. You guys are cheap. She was probably testing you to see how you would respond if it was her. There is absolutely no way she didn't know how you were going to react to that text. Her decision to wait 30 minutes was almost certainly something she did specifically to torture you. I'm glad you're not still with her. The time I accidentally made the guy who fixed my computer think I was dying. Your computer's working fine. Don't hesitate to bring it in again. If it has an problem, me probably no need. I won't be here much longer, as in, I'm moving back home 700 kilometers further. Him goes rather pale me. No wait, that's not what I meant. It's nice of him to be worried about a stranger. I was talking to a bank teller that regularly when making business deposits. She asked about a coworker who had left the company a while back. I responded without thinking, oh, sadly he's no longer with us. I realized my mistake as soon as I finished the sentence. When I was a kid, my sister and I would play together on the computer. The computer chair we had was a nice old armchair, and whoever was spectating would sit up on the back of the chair. One time she stood up without letting me know, and gravity being what it is, I ended up falling backwards and landing directly on the back of my head, requiring 12 stitches. I just remember the whole way down thinking, what did we think was going to happen? I obviously had a concussion, and I remember being super dazed, laying in a puddle of blood, and my mom came in and gave me an annoyed sigh and said, come on, let's go to the hospital. Told the wrong girl I loved her, and the next minute I was like, dang, because she was happy with it and there was no way to take it back, so I had to roll with it for a few months. As a girl, I'd rather a guy fess up to an accidental text and love confession than find out later that he never liked me in the first place and only did it out of pity. As a guy, I would rather this happen if I asked someone out. How did this happen? Was it dark? Were masks involved? Are you a character in a Shakespearean comedy? So I had to roll with it for a few months lol. Sexted a group text instead of my person. Oh my, that explanation was probably fun. I could have handled it better. That's when you say sorry wrong person and then immediately start making that a joke for you, where you start texting friends lewd stuff and then sorry wrong person. I was too stressed out to think of this. Duly noted. We'll let you know how it goes if this happens again. It's not often you get to disappoint two girls at the same time. For what it's worth, I entertained 3 friends in the process. When I woke up, the time is 9:32 am. The exam was 7:30 am. I did this exact thing in high school, except as I woke up and rushed to put my clothes on, I got a text saying the exam had been cancelled because the teachers went on strike. I've never gone from complete despair to euphoric ecstasy so fast. Ecstasy. I have an exam in 8 hours. So stressed about oversleeping that I altered my sleep schedule so I wouldn't miss it. It's 1 am right now, and the exam is at 9 am. I just woke up. I pulled what I thought was my expired CR card out of my pocket and ran it through the shredder at work. It wasn't my CR card. It was my government ID card, which I also need to log on to my work computer. Do you impulsively shred cards? Oh man, how did that all end? I fished what I could out of the bin so I could prove I hadn't lost it. Took it and got a new card. The other day I was booking, not paying attention. Had a glove on my right hand that's often safe. Someone handed me a beer and proceeded to talk to me. I took the beer with my right hand. I then opened the BBQ and grabbed the top grill with my left unprotected hand to adjust it, pulled it halfway out before the heat registered. Once it did, the realization was pretty instant. The blisters were bad for over a week. Worked at a dubbing studio. Took a pic of an Voltron episode. Turns out it was unreleased worldwide, and they caught me. When I got into work and someone says you got a Reddit account, my heart sank. I didn't leak or spoil anything, but it was a big deal and Cold lost a major player in the dubbing area, DreamWorks. I still get anxiety when I think about it. When I was younger, I used to jump from one sofa to the next. I used to call it island hopping. One time, after the cleaners came, I hadn't realized that they moved the sofas, so I jumped, and the split second between me realizing that I wouldn't make it and the moment right before I fell on the ground was the moment when I realized that I effed up. As a kid, I let the handbrake off in my parents' car. I'd watched my brother do it plenty of times before, so why couldn't I? It rolled straight down a steep bank with me in the driver's seat and into a tractor tire. My parents were fuming for a few weeks. Really, it's a miracle I've survived this long. This has made me fear parenting with my ex. By not acknowledging my feelings and what I wanted, I let a perfectly good thing die. Seeing him move on from it all kind of kicked me into recognizing my own failings and what I need to work on. It hurts to come to terms with this now after 8 months, but as they say, it's better late than never. Just this morning I heard a weird pop in the kitchen. Had a moment of total confusion, and then remembered that I had started hard boiling some eggs more than 45 minutes ago. The pop was a hard-boiled egg exploding. FTFY. When you're on your phone for a long time, and then you suddenly notice that the Wi-Fi symbol is missing, and there is this other son of a bee. I have unlimited mobile data. I don't share the feeling. I used to, but I'd rather lose a limb than switch back to limited data.